ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। 10th and 11th verses. 10th verse we have finished. A little more, there will be some things to catch hold of. यदा पञ्चावतिष्ठन्ते ज्ञानानि मनसा सह बुद्धिश्च न विचेष्टति तमाहुः परमां गतिम् तां योगमिति मन्यन्ते स्थिरामिन्द्रियधारणाम् अप्रमत्तस्तदा भवति योगो हि प्रभवाप्ययौ. These two mantras have to do with gaining a stability in the knowledge. The stability is connected to the abidance in the knowledge has a direct correlationship with the calmness of the mind. This does not mean this is not to say that that if the mind is agitated for some reason, that means the jnani suddenly becomes an ajnani. No. The jnani is one who is able to override the mental ups and downs. By how? Yada panchavatishtante, indriyena manasa saha. So, able to fall back on one's own glory. Tishtante means Swe mahimni tishtan. They fall back, abide, and live. They means the five indriyas, the mind, buddhi, etc. They live in their own glory. Now this is some bandied about by everybody. Living in your own glory. And this is not something easy to even understand, because what is this glory? If you unpack glory, then that seems something so far away from who I am. I'm a miserable, inglorious, wretched one. This is how most of the time people feel like this. And not only people feel like this, they have the sangha. Sangha means a certain involvement or identification with the feeling, and so one is convinced one is an inglorious creature. And so this inglorious creature is being asked by the mantra that we studied, and the mantra to come to start abiding in your own glory. How can you abide in your own glory? You can't. You can't do that unless there is, unless you know that you are glorious. And how will you know that you are glorious? With the help of the teaching. It worked. Yes, with the help of the teaching, you know you are glorious. But I'm still not able to abide in my own glory. That means what? The first conclusion that the Ahankara would love to come to is that teaching is useless. See what happened? I wasted my 5 years on Vedanta, Shmedanta, and what has happened? Nothing has happened. I'm not excited about anything. I'm not excited about this abiding in the glory. It seems to be some kind of an altruistic abstraction at best, and I'm not interested in this. So what? So what I have to do now is to do some other things. Why? Because I told you, Vedanta doesn't work. Pramana, Shamana, it doesn't matter, because I did everything. I did all the right things. I had mumukshutvam. Then I had a little light bulb of Viveka. What am I pursuing? What is all this? This is all nonsense. I need to really, look at everything that is what I'm pursuing is finite, and I want that which is infinite. I went about that. Then, a little bit of Vairagya also came accidentally. Yeah, why? Because I had toothache and could not eat a lot of things, and so little Vairagya came. I had fever, so I couldn't eat a few other things, couldn't go a few other places. So certain things accidentally, thanks to Purva Punya, previous good karma, certain things dropped. Then what? So Viveka Vairagya Mumukshutvam, I reminted myself as a Mumukshu. Yes, I reminted myself as a seeker and then a seeker of knowledge. I even went and found a guru. Why even? Even because that's the hardest thing to do. Go seek, a person and ask them for the knowledge. I mean, because this is all, my whole life otherwise has been a do-it-yourself life. DIY, DIM, do it myself. And so I even went and, fell at the feet of the Guru and said, "Hey Guru, teach me the knowledge. Make me wise. Let me have this wisdom." And then the Guru unfolded the Upanishads, and in the beginning I was bright-eyed, starry-eyed, bushy-tailed. Wow! I just had a high after every class. Every class was just a, shot in the arm. Like a prednisone shot, like a steroid. Yeah. Vedanta on steroids. And everything I felt like I just was listening rapt. I gave up everything, gave up friends, gave up all kinds of nonsensical things I was doing, and I just said I have to completely just go with this knowledge. And and then what happened? After one class, two classes, three classes, 1 year, and then what? Then somehow there was a certain familiarity. And the familiarity means what? Been there, done that, heard of this. Yes, that's familiar. I am Atma Brahma. Yes. And now, and then what happened? I started to anticipate what the Guru will say. Now he or she is going to crack one joke. Now he or she is going to, bring in the snake rope analogy. Now he or she is going to talk about mistaking the mother of pearl for the adhyasa. Adhyasa means what? Superimposition. So now pot clay. Yeah, I know about pot clay. I know that is does not belong to pot, is belongs to clay, is Ishvara. Okay, next. So who is the one who is saying all this? There is a mental overdrive in the form of the ahankara taking over the buddhi. This is what is happening. Please understand. When the classes start getting jaded, yeah. So before one becomes a jaded, faded Vedantin, and there are quite a few of that species around, I'm sorry to say. And you talk to them and they have this, long suffering look. Oh, you are studying. They don't even like used to study because they feel they have been there and done that. And you are studying. Why? After that, what will happen? You still have to feed yourself. You still have to do this. Nothing is going to happen. I studied. Look, as though they are a, pramana. Vedanta is not the pramana. The jaded, faded Vedantin talking to you is the pramana. Look, I studied. What happened? I just gave up so many years of my life and did everything. I, did this, did that. Studied for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And look, nothing happened. This stuff doesn't work. So that is where the mind. When I say mind, I mean the ahankara, the I notion that has taken over the thoughts of the mind, that has possessed the mind completely and sat down upon the buddhi and then possessed the buddhi and the mind and then is, is having a diatribe. A diatribe means a monologue. A monologue which sounds very pedantic. Pedantic means very scholarly, sounds very pedantic. And if you look at it, it sounds logical also. Like even the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. What all Arjuna is spewing sounds very logical. He has all this, he has an arsenal. Oh, arsenal to fight the Drona, Bhishma, etc. The Kauravas, no. He has an arsenal of arguments of why he should not go to the war. And those arguments are deeply, deeply flawed. But they have what is called in Sanskrit tarka bhasa. I'm going to write that down because I love that expression. So you can look at it. Little Sanskrit is good for health. Tarka bhasa. So tarka bhasa. Tarka means logic. Okay. Abhasa here means a veneer. It's not really logic. It's a veneer of logic. Like, nowadays they have furniture which looks like wood, but it is not wood. I don't know what it is. It could be anything but wood, Yeah. But they want it to look like wood. So then they have a veneer, a kind of a thin, polished plywood that is nailed on top of the furniture, nailed on top of the TV table or on top of any kind of a table, dining table, etc. It's not wood. It's ersatz, false. So it's a kind of a false, polish pretending to be wood. And here, tarka bhasa is a polished argument pretending to be logical, where on the face of it, it sounds very scholarly. And that's what, Bhagavan Krishna cuts him down in the second chapter along with the teaching. The first verse is, pragya vadamsha bhashase. You are talking like a pandit. But dear Arjuna, you ain't a pandit. You're not a pandit. Why? Because you're not behaving like one. You talk like a pandit. At least on the face of it, it looks like you are very scholarly and logical arguments you made against the war. Suddenly you came out as a pacifist. Suddenly you said that, people are going to be killed. All these other wars you fought, you did not know that or what? How can there be some kind of a, surgical strike without any lives lost? I mean, we are seeing that's not even possible even in this day. All the smart bombs and everything, they will kill more civilians than the people they are after. And so really speaking, what are you talking about? You're talking as though you're a pandit. But it is not real pandityam. It's a veneer, a polished pandityam, so to speak, with which you can get away and fool perhaps most of the people most of the time, but you cannot fool me. And you know what else? You cannot ultimately fool yourself also. This is what Arjuna is told. And he calls him out and he says, you're not a pandit because you're grieving. Because he starts his rant by saying, Drishtvevam swajan Krishna yutsam samupasthitam sidanti mamagatrani mukham cha parishusyati. He starts his rant by saying, after seeing that I have to fight my own people, swajanam, that is the problem here. That swa has to be so big. Swa means oneself. That has to be so big that every single person in the universe has to become swajana. Not easy, not for the faint of heart. Yeah. And then, so that's how he starts. And so, and he says that everybody's going to be killed. What's the use of Rajya? What's the use of kingdom? What's the use of this? I can't live without all these people who have been inimical to me. This sounds like a codependent relationship. The person is abusing me, biff, 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 and I still say, they should be alive, they should be nice, they should be, because there is still some hope that they will treat me nicely. This sounds like a person caught up in some kind of a domestic abuse situation, keeping on, for no fault of theirs. Their mind is not clearly thinking. They keep coming back, because they believe that things will get better. And so Arjuna is yanked of that, in a jiffy, because Bhagavan smells through the non-pandityam, the non-scholarliness of this argument, even through all the argument. And this is what, and Arjuna was a jaded, faded jiva, not a jaded, faded jiva at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. But then, what is the journey, you may ask, from being just a simple jaded, faded jiva to a jaded, faded Vedantin? How is that even accomplished, if that can be called an accomplishment? How is that even accomplished? Not difficult, very easy. Because the jaded, faded jiva, whose mind is not at rest, and who has not done enough homework in terms of the preparation, and the preparation here, a small little word called samadhanam, one of the 6 packs, which is often overlooked or elided upon. Samadhanam, that single-minded focus, is not there. And then what happens? Vedanta is assimilated, of course, because the person was very excited and everything. But then what happens is that the jaded, faded jiva becomes a jaded, faded Vedantin, because the jading and the fading, the roots of it, were not looked into. Yeah. So first jaded, faded jiva, then you have a new epithet, I'm a Vedantin, but a jaded one and a faded one. That's what it is. So the transition happens because there is something has dropped the ball somewhere. And it is not the fault of the pramana, because you have not given the pramana a chance. No, but I have studied for 5 years. You can study for 50 years without giving the pramana a chance. Why? Because there is a ninja in everyone, has an inner ninja. You put a block and not allow the teachings to come and transform. One has to be in a place and a state of wonder. And this is how the knowledge is assimilated. And if there is a block, the teacher takes care of a lot of blocks, really. The compassion of the teacher and the teaching itself takes care of a lot of blocks. But you have to do the rest. You have to do the rest of the work to be in a place of receptivity. So this is today's teaching is all about how to get to the place of abiding in one's own glory, and what does that mean. So point 1, be in a show up, yeah. And if you're going to log on, might as well just listen. What's the point of having it's like some people have the TV on because they can't stand the silence. Silence means all kinds of bad thoughts will come. Again, the mind is being taken over by the ahankara, which is rehearsing its own pattern of something terrible about to happen, or some insecurity, or some inglorious thoughts keep coming. And so therefore what? So therefore, you can't switch it off. You have to work with that mind. That becomes a very important, homework. And so one has to show up. And so you show up means you don't log on to the class and then do whatever you want. It's a background noise. If Vedanta is background noise, white noise, whatever mind chatter, it's not going to go in. So you have to show up. You have to not only, be there, but also put yourself in a place of listening. Put yourself in a place of listening, and that becomes the first, the first, what is that called? Um, Criterion for what is to follow the embracing of one's own glory. That will follow. So first I have to show up. Yeah, I have showed up, but I feel bad and I don't feel good and all these things. And that is because there is, it's not that Shravanam is not working. This is a conclusion made by the shallow ahankara that has taken possession of the mind and has convinced the buddhi that the teaching is not working, therefore I have to ship out. This is a sad travesty. It is a pratibandhaka. It is an obstacle from the past karma, because it seems to be a very thick and heavy set pattern that is not budging. The heavy set and thick pattern is sitting upon my desire for study and my desire to assimilate. So there seems like an impasse. It's like a battering ram, two battering rams going at each other. Nobody wins. And so therefore that impasse has to be jiggled, and one has to, and there are a lot of signs. So many signs are there in the course of the day that really keep one calling back to oneself. That's what it is. And you go for a walk, it's very, very clear. You go do something, you're even doing something mundane like washing the dishes. The need to come back to oneself is so, so, so very strong that it brings one back. And those signs must not be ignored. They have to be embraced and they have to be taken into account and acted upon. And then, it's not that the Shravanam hasn't worked. For your 5-year study or 10-year study or however long you've been studying, lifelong study. It's not that the Vedanta is not working. It's just that the Shravanam needs something else in order to work. The Shravanam is going only so far and no further. So therefore, you need to amplify the Shravanam. Just like, you go in for a hearing aid, or better still, the ear is blocked with some wax or whatever it is, and then you have to clear it out. You have to remove the blockage. And so that is not the teacher's job. That is your job. Yeah. You have to remove the blockages. And the removal of the blockages in ancient, texts, Vedantic texts, starting with the Upanishad, it's called, the removal of the blockages is a 2-part process called Mananam and Nididhyasanam. Mananam means the removal of doubts. How come I'm Brahman? How come I'm, and if I'm Brahman, why I'm not feeling like this? And, how can I be Brahman? I am just a person with so much height and so much weight, and this is my occupation, and this is my family, and these are my children, and, this is my workplace. How can I be Brahman? And if I am Brahman, then everybody is Brahman, then how many Brahmans are there? These kinds of doubts are removed in the question period through asking the teacher and to talking it amongst oneself, and also meditating upon those thoughts in one's, in one's spare time. Thinking about that. See, because so many other thoughts will come. Scary thoughts, and frightening thoughts, sad thoughts, mad thoughts. Mad thoughts means what? Thoughts that drive you mad. And so all those thoughts, one is not going to give the time of day. And those thoughts are put aside and replaced consciously with what you really want to think. That's why the mantra is very powerful. So when the wrong thoughts come, thoughts that are dead-end thoughts that leave you jaded, faded, and deadened to the knowledge. Replace them with a mantra. Shanai Shanai Ruparamet Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya Atmanyeva Vasham Nayet. Sixth chapter, Bhagavan advises Krishna. Slowly, slowly you will have a say over the ways of the mind. Abhyasena tu vairagyena chagrihyate kaunteya. O Kunti Putra, by abhyasa means this relentless practice. And what is the practice? Of having a say over one's thoughts. And then what? Vairagya. Vairagya means letting go of the tenacity of the other thoughts. What are the other thoughts? I'm jaded, I'm faded, I'm an idiot, nobody loves me, I'm abandoned. And, Vedanta doesn't work. Those thoughts are replaced by other thoughts, which you unleash consciously. So really speaking, the buddhi is taking hold of the mind. And the ahankara is being taught to not go with the ways of the mind, because the mind will keep thinking thoughts. But when the ahankara goes and joins and then possesses the mind and then gives it more encouragement, it is like a bad relationship. Very bad relationship, yeah. And so, in a kind of a terrible scenario, one person is an alcoholic, the other person wasn't, but then sahavasa doshena, because of living together, the other one also quickly takes to alcohol, then both of them are alcoholic. This is what happens to the mind and the ahankara. And so, therefore, one of them has to be sane here. And here is the buddhi which has turned behind. You look at what is that called? Ratha Kalpana. Krishna, Lord Krishna, which stands for the buddhi, has turned around and is addressing the ahankara. So the buddhi has to be in the proper place and it has to teach the ahankara. That is what is called, there's a lot of hype about inner guru. Your buddhi is your inner guru. And that guru has to talk and then the mind has to listen. The ahankara has to listen. And that buddhi is coming from the well springs of the desire for knowledge. And a buddhi that is always kept alive with its, with a palpable desire for knowledge is the buddhi that can guide. So therefore, what kind of a buddhi should it be? First, the buddhi has to be cultivated to be vyavasayatmika buddhi eka iha kuru nandana. Eka iha. There's only one-minded. Again, back to samadhanam. What do I really want? No, but I'm not getting it. That's the disappointment and the pain. That's going to be dealt with later. And identify that pain and say, this is from the past. Call its bluff, and don't let it overshadow the current situation. This is what is being taught in the next in verses number 10 and 11. This is what is being taught. And so that mindfulness, which actually, in the Zen, that's why people love Zen, because it is very Vedanta-esque. In Zen, they have that emphasis on alertness, which is gained from the Upanishad. Mindfulness. Yada panchavatishtante jnanani manasa saha. Here is where everything abides in me. And if the mind is, I'm constantly mindful. If I'm doing something, I don't switch off. No, but what's wrong in switching off? Sometimes I'm tired, I need to switch off. If you switch off, what will happen? Something else will switch on. You switch off from Vedanta, then all the old record of the pain and the sorrow and the abandonment and everything, that will switch on, and like that, that vinyl records in the olden times, it will get stuck. It will keep, that needle will be keeping on needling you. It will keep on needling you and not give you any respite. It's like a stuck record. It just keeps on playing the same old tune. Why? Because you are not giving it the new tune. You are not giving it the tune that it is craving. And you're not giving it the ability to free itself from this loop. And so that's why it's important not to switch off. That's why Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is a mechanism by which you're always in prayer. There is no switching off possible. So everything is mindfully done because every thought, every action, yad karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juhoshi, dadasi yat, tad kurushva madarpanam. Again Bhagavad Gita. Yad juhoshi, whatever you offer, yad ashnasi, whatever you eat, the eating is also an inner offering to me, Vaishvanara, in the form of Vaishvanara. Yad karoshi, whatever you do, dadasi, whatever you give, whatever you take, whatever you do. And then tat kurushva, all those things, every action, madarpanam, consciously, it's a state of alertness. Pashyan shrinvan, swapan shwasan, pralapan, visrijan, grindhan, unmishan, nimishan api, indriyani indriyarthebhyah, vartanta iti dharayan, navadvare pure dehi, naiva kurvanna karayan. So, eating, sleeping, waking up, you notice that the sense organs are there, they are doing their job. They are just lighting up the objects of the senses, but I have the freedom to not go after them. Indriyani, indriyarthebhya, they are there for the sake of lighting up the objects. I have the choice which one to pursue and which one to not. Vartante, they are just like that. Iti dharayan, that dharana. Here is a very important aspect of the yogic path, of the eightfold path. Dhyana, meditation, and the meditation is important because it leads to a state called dharana. Dharana means the ability to hold that mind that is, from swaying hither and thither. But karma, you don't have to worry that if you don't have dharana, what will you do? I can't even meditate for 5 minutes. How will I have dharana? Even dhyana is not possible. Don't worry, because karma yoga is nothing but dharana in action. Yeah. Have dharana in action. It's a waking meditation, 24-hour meditation. Everything is dedicated to Bhagavan means I can't switch off. I can't slump, and I can't just, be thinking other things all the time. You keep bringing the mind back. Yato yato nishcharati, tatastata shamayet. Yato yato nishcharati, as the mind keeps swaying and going away, because that's the job of the mind. You cannot tell the mind, I want to control you. It cannot be controlled. Because the mind has to be an animated entity in order for you to be able to move in the world, even in order for you to be able to gain the knowledge. It has to process, it has to think, it has to go from frame to frame. And this mind, yato yato nishcharati, as it keeps going, away from the topic at hand, away from leading an alert life, away from what you're doing. Tatastataha shamayet, sanyamam. You bring it back repeatedly and do this constantly throughout the day. Constantly. And, and Pujya Swamiji used to give a very nice trick. He would say that when difficult thoughts come, say Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. And and upon being asked, what is this Om Tat Sat? Are you giving us a new mantra? He says, no. Om Tat Sat is full stop in Sanskrit. He would always say that. Om Tat Sat is nothing but a big full stop in Sanskrit. Oh, this day is turning out terrible. Om Tat Sat, full stop. What am I going to do? Om Tat Sat, full stop. The next thought is unconnected with that. New thought. and the new thought is equally worse or worse than the other two. Oh, I feel abandoned. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat also is an in to abide in the witness, in the Sakshi Pratyaksha, where the mind is Saksha, is being witnessed all the time, and the mind is being witnessed, and then you just say Om Tat Sat. That means what? You are an object, I am the subject, the thought has been objectified. And when the thought is objectified, there is nothing more to say because it doesn't have power over me. How can the object overpower the subject? It's like saying, you know, the I want to set space on fire. Can you set space on fire? You know? No. Can you cut up space with a knife into pieces? No. Can you throw some water and make space wet? No. What else is left? Fire, water, earth? Yeah. Earth means the sword. Air. Can you say that I'm going to dehydrate space and dry it out? Or I'm going to make a tsunami, some kind of a, what is that called? Twister, and then put space in the spin? No. Because all those things are happening in space. Similarly, even if the other four elements cannot fight space or obliterate space, what to talk of that consciousness, which is the author of space. Tasmad va etasmad atmana akasha sambhutah. From this Atma alone, the Akasha, space, has come. So the Atma is the creator of space. So if space itself cannot be destroyed by the other four elements, what to talk of the creator of space? That conscious entity, which is the observer of space, who can destroy that? So this is all, that I'm subject to time, that I'm subject to insecurity is kalpita. This has to be constantly falsified. It cannot be constantly falsified because I have things to do, places to go, people to see. So the next best thing to do is to be alert, alive to the realities. Whatever you are doing, learn to enjoy it. Because you can't always do as you like, you learn to like what there is to do. Whatever there is to do, you enjoy, 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 enjoy. And that is the key. But I'm not enjoying, that is where yogasana comes into the picture, therapy comes. All this we cannot discount. Anything to keep you in the place, of taking care of what is in the way. Whatever is in the way has to be taken care of. And so these two verses, these two mantras, 10 and 11, talk of the need for this homework. So first I talked of receptivity, and in order to be receptive to the teaching, the alertness in all other areas of life is warranted. Alertness is needed. And that alertness means not letting the mind slump into the habitual patterns which are false. This is an active part of mananam. This is what is called mananam. Even though it is translated as doubt removal, it goes beyond doubt removal. And then nididhyasanam is the regurgitation of all the teachings that have been taught to you and reveling in them as the truth of yourself. That is nididhyasanam. And that too has a place in breaking this impossible impasse of being a jaded, faded Vedantin. And I cannot iterate this enough. I cannot iterate this enough. And this does work, and it is a very important part of the learning process. And this is something people gloss over. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. It is glossed over because it's not as exciting as sitting in front of the teacher and listening to the classes. Listening to the classes, always one is joyful. Even as a jaded, faded Vedantin, once or twice you know crack a laugh, at some joke, add something beside you. Even in spite of yourself, you're able to laugh. But nididhyasanam means you have to do this on your own. It is a testing time of how much you yourself have said no, that I have put 5 years of my life into Vedanta. Let us see how it protects you. Let us see how it protects you. No, but it's not protecting to me. How can you say it's not protecting you? It's like a person who is in the cold, sitting on some snow in the ice, and then not wearing the jacket that they have. The jacket is lying on the ground, and they are also sitting on the ground and saying, "I'm dying of the cold. This jacket is useless. It's not protecting me." You have to wear it. You have to embrace Vedanta like the cloak, cloak of knowledge has to be embraced. If you keep rejecting it, how will it protect you? If you keep saying this doesn't work, it's not going to protect you. Yame vaisha vrinute tena labhyah tasyaiva atma vivrunute tanum swam. Kathopanishad earlier. Nayam atma pravachanena labhyah. This atma is not gained by sitting in discourses all day long. Oh, that means Shravanam doesn't work. No, that's not what it means. It means when the Shravanam is calling for more homework on your part and you're not doing that, that is the scenario. Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya. You can't just pick up and attend every lecture, of every Swami coming into town, and that will just be confusing. Na bahuna shrutena. So even if you keep listening for a long time and one still feels jaded, faded, somehow that spuranam, something inside has not moved. There should be a quickening. Quickening is a term, of a pregnancy where the baby starts to kick. That's when the mother to be, the parents to be know that there is an entity here that's alive and kicking. It's alive and kicking. And so that is what is called a quickening. So the Vedanta from within has to stir and has to protect, for which you have to allow it to do that. And you have to help it along by reminding the ahankara, by reminding the mind, of who you are, who you really are. Otherwise, the knowledge, it's not that the knowledge is not there. The knowledge is there, but it is eclipsed by all other problems, all other situations, all other wrong thoughts and wrong identification. And because this eclipse is taking place or has taken place, it has to be righted. This is the homework. So nididhyasanam means, taking hold of the knowledge that has blessed you and allow it to bless you again. The first time it blessed you in class, next time it blesses you in your room, in your house, in the privacy of your own home, and it blesses you. How? Because you already know the meaning of it. So you dwell upon that meaning as yourself rather than dwelling upon the meaning of what somebody said and what does that mean to you who feels inglorious. Yeah, that is what it is. So before also dwelling is taking place. Before nididhyasanam, dwelling is taking place. And where are you dwelling? You're dwelling in your failures or what you perceive as your failures. You're dwelling in shame. You're dwelling in sorrow. You're dwelling in, some kind of a wrong understanding. You're dwelling in resentment. So one is dwelling in all these things, but those dwellings are shaky and impermanent. Even though they look permanent, they're shaky and impermanent. And so therefore, one has to dwell in the glory of one's own self and one has to be forced to dwell in the glory of one's own self. Yeah, like like you have to force the toddler to take a nap. Otherwise, it'll just be all over the place. So here too, the mind and the buddhi are taught to encourage to dwell in the words of the Vedanta, in the words of the Upanishad. So take something that you've studied, go back, listen to it, or look at the verse, look at the message, think about it, and be with it. Be with it. That is what the whole thing is. That being with is called dharana in action. That being with is already one has some practice through karma yoga. And then in the nididhyasana, that is our dharana. The ability to abide in the teaching comes from allowing it to protect you, allowing it to come to your rescue. How will it come to your rescue if it is not recalled? Yeah, it's like saying, one person said that I don't want to ask Bhagavan anything. Why should I ask Bhagavan anything? Because I'll just, Bhagavan knows what I want. So therefore I'll just say Soham, Soham, Soham. And the story goes that Bhagavan came and, thinking, who shall I help today? And who needs help? Who is praying? Saw this fellow with closed eyes saying, Soham, Soham, and said, oh, this person knows, and went away. Because the person did not actively call Bhagavan. And so like this, you have to call the inner Bhagavan to come and sit in the heart. Isn't Bhagavan already sitting in the heart? Yes, but do you know that? No. Okay, so that's what it is. That avahanam has to be done every day. Every day. That's why we say, I told you last time, we chant pratasmaranam. In the morning, you change the morning waking time. You take a couple of minutes extra to wake up. And that this is not by pressing the snooze button. That's not what I'm talking about. You recall who you really are. One recalls who one really is. It changes the whole day, I tell you. Really changes the whole day. And because that small recollection of who you really are, I am the Atma, I'm not this baggage of bones, flesh, blood, and mind and body. I'm not this body-mind complex. I am that Atma which is all pervasive, which is there which is there without limits, which is there forever. That is who I am. And you see, the day transforms, and it's such a small exercise. And you have to do it every day. And if you take a nap in the afternoon, you have to do it when you wake up. You can't say, let me brush my teeth and then I'll do it. It doesn't work. It has to be in that twilight zone between waking and, between sleep and waking, that what is called, the Jungian psychologists have a term for it. It is called the lucid state, lucid dreaming. So it is in that in-between thing you have to catch the ahankara when it is ardha vikasa, half awake, and it starts to plan the day. What do I have to do? Which day is it? Oh, I have to do this to go there. You don't let it do that. You stop, and this is this is morning nididhyasanam. Every day you tell yourself, I'm not this body, mind, sense complex. I'm much more than this. Shivoham, Shivoham. You can start the day. And then, the nididhyasanam continues. So when there is the where is that? The flooding of too many emotions from the past, this is what releases. This is the cutting. The Upanishad is the, kshurasya dhara nihita, and this is the sharp knife that cuts through that illusion or delusion that I am a mortal subject to the flow of my emotions. In India, and in some other ancient societies where one still is, based, which are still based on kinship networks and those kinds of things, there is not time to indulge these thoughts. There is no time, frankly, during the day because you're doing things. You're constantly engaged, and one is constantly engaged in action in karma yoga, so the mind does not stray too much. In the West, unfortunately, we have a lot of time to seat these wrong emotions on the throne and to do puja to them. 108 names. Inglorious, oh inglorious one, namaha, oh tired one, namaha, om jaded one, namaha, om faded one, namaha. Like this, we nourish these emotions much more than they should be. They should be starved. And the best way of starving them is to do other things, is to occupy the mind, is to not let that mind fall into the pit of tamas, inertia, inglorious inertia. That's what it is. That's seva is emphasized. That's why, the bhakti is emphasized. Seva is emphasized. These all become, sahacharins. They all help us to have that focus, to not, fall back into wrong identifications with sorrow, with fear, and, identify with sorrow. Naturally, I think of myself as the sorrowful one. When I identify with fear, I become the fearful one. So the fear becomes an entity that possesses me, nay, it becomes me. This is what has to be interrupted constantly, and the words of the Vedas, the words of the Upanishad help us to do that, provided we let them. And the way to let them is to really spend some time thinking about what you have studied. Look at the notes. Especially when you first started to study, the note taking will be very sharp and clear. Look at those notes because you were excited. And then what happened? The same jaded, fadedness which has haunted one for the last several janmas took over, and then there is no excitement anymore. And then one reaches the wrong conclusion. What is that? This stuff doesn't work. On to the next thing. What is the next thing? Next thing is something else. We'll see. This is what it is. And so the dharana means the staying power, the ability to be with the knowledge and give it the power to bless you. That is what is called dharana. New definition of dharana. This is not really the yogic definition. The yogic definition of dharana is what? The yogic definition of dharana is be able to maintain that meditation without it being undercut by other thoughts. But you see that for us, and the Upanishad says the same thing. Yogaha bhavapyayo prabhavapyayo means this keeps going and coming. Because even though you're able to maintain a thoughtless state, let us say, or a single-minded, thoughtful state, one point, single focus state for half an hour, and then after that what? Bell rings, something happens, then you come back to this same world of thoughts. So for us, that's just a preparation. We don't say, don't have the single-mindedness in the meditation. Yes, let all the thoughts drop. We are not striving for a thoughtless state, but we are striving to have a way over the sway of a sway over the ways of the mind. So we have a say over the ways of the mind, and so we give it a thought to think. It has to be a meaningful thought. So you say Om Namah Shivaya. What is going to be my next thought? Om Namah Shivaya. What's going to be the thought after that? Om Namah Shivaya. And you watch the spaces in between the mantra so that the distraction doesn't take place. And when distraction comes, you bring the mind back. So that is not that is not wasted. But that is so that when the so-called non-meditative states are also equally meditative. So when I practice in the meditation, then when I'm not meditating, so to speak, that also becomes a meditation. That is what is the whole idea. That the practice of dhyanam and dharana, the ability to hold the mind and the ability to be with the mantra, all this should translate into an easier life for me in the waking state, in the so-called non-meditative state. The so-called non-meditative state should also become transformative and meditative for me through the practice of meditation. And if that's not happening, something is wrong, because the jaded, faded jiva has taken over the meditation. The jaded, faded ahankara is also meditating with the same jaded, fadedness as one is attending the class. So the jaded, faded jiva is telling itself in meditation, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Oh, what's happened? Nothing happened. Om Namah Shivaya. Oh, half an hour I said I would meditate. Is it half an hour? No. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Wah, wah, wah. Blah, blah, blah. Might as well say blah, blah, blah. Om Namah Shivaya. So this is the same pain and the hurt of the past, where one feels like a loser. That is that inglory, really. And that loser feeling that I'll never excel at anything else, that I will never be as good as I want to be, that's a spoof. Look at it. Why do you have to excel? You are excellent already. Why do you have to achieve anything? You don't need to achieve anything. You're already fine how you are. You are great, and that greatness has to be, assimilated. And so and these thoughts, the inglorious, the hold of the inglorious thoughts on the ahankara has to be loosened. Like when you harvest carrots and potatoes, I've seen, on the roadside, they beat it on the ground to loosen the clods of earth. This is just like clumps of earth in the buddhi, weighing you down. That has to be loosened. And these are the practices that help to loosen it. We just have got started. There's a lot more to say. This will continue next Wednesday. Enough for now. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadagya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. You're welcome. Om. If there are any questions, you can ask. But I think it was clear, right? Yeah. Om. Thank you. Om. Nice to see you, Dottie. Keep coming. Namaste. Om. Om.